So first of all, welcome to everybody. As I just said before, this is the last of our Finding Your Strengths topics, which is the first topic for the webinar series. So we've had great fun already this week, and we're looking forward to completing the rest of the webinars over the coming weeks. The webinars have been designed based on my book, which is called From Learner to Earner, which you'll see in the resources at the end of the slides. And it's just something that we decided to create to share with universities so that they could sign their students up. And they tend to be sort of 30 to 45 minutes depending on the length of the topic. Clearly we can't cover everything within that topic in that time, but hopefully we're giving you enough of a flavour for things. We're pointing you in the direction of further reading and resources as well. And if you piece them all together, there's a lot of information all together there for you. We've been delighted to see so many students sign up for the webinar. So some of you have signed up for every single one, which is amazing. And some of you have chosen the topics which are more relevant to you. And either of those is fine. And we're looking forward to seeing you all on future ones. So here's the overview of the topics that we're going to be covering over the next few weeks. So as I said before, some topics will be slightly longer, some will be shorter, and it will just depend on how much information we've got for each of the topics. So we're running each topic 3 times a week. Ideally, you're going to tune in live to these to take advantage of the chance to ask questions, but we will be recording these and you'll receive a link to the recording after each session that you were registered for. They're on set times each week, so you can choose the day and time that suits you. On the bank holiday weeks, one of the days will change though. So you can see the different topics there. There are activities linked to each webinar, and we'll advise whether you should complete these before or after the webinar. They are optional, so you don't have to do them, but if you do complete them, then we think that you will get more from the webinars, and also it will help you with your aim of securing a job. So we would encourage you to complete those. So a few hints and tips to get the most out of the webinars. So my colleague Helen is going to introduce herself in a moment, and she's going to be managing any questions and comments, and she'll explain to you how that's going to work. We had a pretty quiet bunch on the first one on Monday, but we had a few more questions on our session on Wednesday. So don't be shy, there are no silly questions, and we'd love you to get involved and ask us some questions or comment. If you can mute your phone so that you haven't got any notifications distracting you, that would be great to keep you focused. And then finally, just use the tools and resources that are available. I mentioned that there are some resources that we've created that go alongside the webinars. So we've got templates and checklists and things like that, and we'll send those to you after each webinar. These hopefully will be useful in your job search. We'll also direct you where there's further reading or there's case studies and things like that, but it's very much a pick and mix series, so you can choose which bits you engage with, but hopefully by providing all of that information, it gives you the chance to do further reading if necessary. So who are we? So I'm Sophie, so I'm the MD at SRS. We are recruitment and employability experts, so we work with big employers to design their assessment materials and processes. We also do some of the recruitment for them from time to time as well. I've also written the book From Learner to Earner, which I mentioned earlier, and that's to help students and graduates get a graduate job. Alongside all of this, we also do a lot of work with universities, which is where Helen's role fits neatly in, and I'll let Helen tell you a little bit about that.
Yep, so I'm the University Partnerships Manager for SRS, and I support Sophie with running the practice assessment centres and employability workshops to improve the employability of students and help you secure those placements and those graduate roles. So we know it's become even tougher to secure those roles at the moment, and so please use these webinars to learn as much as you can. I'm going to be responding to your questions throughout the webinar using Zoom chat, and you'll see that at the bottom of your screen. Please ignore the Q&A function and click on chat instead. And when you go in, could you set your comments to say all panelists and attendees so that everyone can see your questions and then benefit from the responses? If there are a lot of questions, I hope there is, and I can't quite keep up with my typing, I will aim to provide a summary at the end of the webinar. Okay, thanks very much.
Great, thanks Helen. So at various points in this webinar and in the series, we will be joined by experts in graduate recruitment to hear their valuable insight and their top tips. Today we have some advice from Gary Argent. Gary has worked in graduate recruitment as a recruiter for Logica, and he's also been a head of career service at City University. As well as that, he's also worked for our industry body, the Institute of Student Employers. We will refer to the Institute of Student Employers, or the ISE, from time to time during the webinars because we get a lot of really good information from them. And there are a number of employers and universities that are members of the ISE. So there's lots of information sharing, really great information that we can get through them. Gary now runs Graduate Transitions, which is a company which helps employers and universities work together to enable the transition of graduates into the workplace. So he has loads of hints and tips to share with everybody. So here's the agenda for the session this morning. So we're going to cover the points that are on the screen now. I think it's worth at this point acknowledging the current situation. Clearly, these are very unusual times in general, and I know that many of you will be worried about the jobs market and probably apprehensive about the number of opportunities available. At this stage, it is too early to say what the true impact will be. So various articles suggest that short-term SMEs will be hit hardest, but we do see larger companies still hiring, even in the middle of all of this. Showing my age now, but being old enough to have seen the economy go through a recession, my own take is that there will be some recruitment freezes, but the length of these will depend on how quickly things bounce back, and clearly some industries will be hit harder than others. I think if you know which industry you want to go into and it is one that is hard hit, you might need to wait longer to secure a role. And it is worth seeing if you've got transferable skills that you could put to use in maybe a temporary job, or give consideration to getting a part-time job and volunteering in your chosen field until things pick up. But the key point is things will pick up, and the graduate market is a recruitment market that does bounce back quickly. The cost of labour is seen as good value. And also established companies and organisations know that if they freeze recruitment for too long, it will cause talent shortages in the years to come. So I think the key message there is to stay focused and keep applying, because many students will give up thinking that there's just no point in even applying. So don't be one of them. The fact that you're on this webinar now suggests that you're serious about finding a placement or a job. And actually, you know, that's half the battle, because there will be so many students that just, you know, don't even bother applying anyway. So throughout today and also throughout the whole series, at any point where we can bring you up-to-date information about what's going on in the marketplace, what employers are doing relating to the current situation, we will of course update you on that. So we'll keep our knowledge as fresh as we can and share that with you throughout the series. So let's take a look at understanding how to find your strengths. If you look at this chart, you'll see a whole list of different skills, and we all have strengths and weaknesses. So a job that plays to our strengths is likely to be more fun. By figuring out your strengths early and factoring them into your job search, you're more likely to be successful at the job you land, and you're more likely to love that job. Some sectors may value certain skills above others. Broadly speaking though, most employers are looking for similar skills from their graduate recruits. Bear in mind that they may not be looking for a huge number of technical skills at this point, because these can be taught at a later stage. During recruitment, they're looking for you to be motivated and enthusiastic about the opportunity, and are more likely to be assessing you on your soft skills. So looking again at this chart has come from the ISE, who I mentioned in the introduction, and it's their student development survey from last year, and it highlights the skills that employers indicated graduates were lacking. Concern about resilience was most commonly cited in terms of graduates, and interestingly, school leavers were considered to be more resilient than graduates. I'm not sure why that is, but it's quite interesting. You can use this chart to get an understanding of the skills that employers are looking for. Consider which of these are your strengths and which are your development areas. Can you think of examples from university life or work experience which best illustrate a particular strength? You were sent a short task to complete in the instructions for this webinar, which you can now see on the screen. Don't worry if you didn't get time to do it yet. I just wanted to remind you that it is worth doing, especially if you can get a friend or family member to share their thoughts. The information that you'll get as a result of completing this task will be useful at various points of your job search. So do come back to this, whether it's using the video that was in the email that we sent out, or come back to this slide when we send the recording out afterwards. Okay, so let's hear from Gary now. I mentioned Gary in the introduction, and he has plenty of excellent advice.
Get involved in lots of different activities while you're at university, even if some of these are happening online at the moment. Join a couple of clubs or societies, be active in the student union, do some voluntary work, or get yourself a mentor if you can. Along with your studies and any part-time jobs, these activities will expose you to lots of different situations and give you opportunities to try new things. You'll find out what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy and what you're good at. As well as helping you to understand your preferences and strengths, these activities will help you build up plenty of examples for your application forms and for your interviews.
Thanks, Gary. Some useful advice there from Gary. So we're going to move on now and take a look at the importance of work experience. So work experience, as I'm sure you can imagine, is very important. And a third of recruiters that took part in the research that contributes to the Times Top 100 Graduate Employers list repeated in their surveys last year the warnings from previous years, which were that graduates who had no previous work experience were unlikely to be successful during the selection. This is backed up by Helen, who is a head of future talent recruitment at British Airways and used to have the same role at Marks and Spencer's. She told me that work experience is key. It doesn't necessarily have to be directly relevant, although this varies by scheme. So for example, when she was at M&S, for fashion designers and buyers, it would be more useful for them to have relevant experience. She felt that it definitely gives candidates more to draw upon at interview and assessment, more confidence, and the ability to better transition into the world of work. We think that some of the best work experience comes in the form of an internship or a placement with an employer you're considering for a graduate role. This can be a great way to find out if the employer is a good fit for you. You might end up hating the work, but you'll have been paid for the experience, can discard the employer from your future job searches, and can enjoy the benefit of having the experience on your CV. The best case scenario is that you enjoy the placement, they love you, and you head back to your final year at university with a graduate job offer in hand. Indeed, the Institute of Student Employers, they reported that employers rehired an average of 52% of their interns and 43% of their summer placement students. My own view is that work experience is key, and to differentiate yourself from the competition, you do need to have some. There's always a benchmark on qualifications for graduate roles, so you might have to have a 2-1 or a certain number of UCAS points to even apply. And because so many applicants will meet this standard, work experience can be the way to stand out. It's certainly an advantage to have work experience that's relevant to the role, whether you were paid for the work or not, but don't discount the value of a part-time or summer job that seems unconnected to what you do. Now, you might think that with everything that's going on, placements and internships are just going to be canned by employers. But Helen, can you give us a bit of information about what is going on currently in the market?
Yep, absolutely. So there has definitely been a decline in the number of placements and internships that are being offered, but there are still some employers out there that are running work experience opportunities over the summer and definitely beyond. So for example, a lot of the larger firms such as IBM and Aon, they are offering virtual placements and projects that can be completed remotely. Their aim is to then follow this up with actual work shadowing when the crisis is over. It's still worth approaching some of the smaller businesses as well, because even here at SRS, we've created our own remote work experience opportunity that's going ahead in the next couple of weeks. You can use this time as well to register your interest and arrange something for the future. So for any company that you're particularly interested in, research their website, see if they're running any webinars or video conferences that give an insight into working with them. Off the back of that, you can then network with the people who ran that webinar, maybe use LinkedIn to follow up, inquire about any future possibilities. I've also spoken to a number of employers who are reaching out to universities to work with them specifically to create virtual insight days and conferences that can be made available to their students. So it is very important to touch base with your career service and see what's already there or what's about to be put into place with regards to work experience. Ultimately, it is harder, but it is still very possible to get work experience. And as we've talked about, definitely worth doing in terms of your career.
Great, thanks for that, Helen. So we're now going to just see what Gary thinks in the next short video clip.
Work experience is great because it gives you tangible examples to talk about. And as a recruiter, I love examples. They show me that you can actually do all the things you describe on your CV. It's great if the work experience is in a relevant area. That's the gold standard, if you like. But work experience in other areas is valuable too. Recruiters look for transferable skills, something that you've learned in one context but could use somewhere else. For example, a project that you've undertaken while volunteering in your local community can teach you about planning, teamwork, resilience, leadership, a whole range of skills that you'll be using in your graduate job. Tell me about what you've learned in one situation and show me how you'll transfer those skills into my organisation, and you'll definitely catch my attention.
Thanks for that, Gary. So let's have a look at this student case study now. So this is Josh, who studied at the University of Leeds. So he was looking for a graduate role in management consulting, had a real passion for this kind of work, but he felt that the work experience that he had wasn't relevant. This meant that he was using university course examples at interview. We had a bit of a chat about how course examples can be used by all the applicants and that work experience examples do tend to be more unique. So after we'd had that discussion, Josh was able to identify skills from his role working in a gym, which he never referred to in any interview situation. So we talked about how he had teamwork, working under pressure, coaching, and these were all skills that were transferable to any workplace. And the fact that he'd got those skills, or developed those skills within his part-time role, meant that he had very unique examples of where he demonstrated each of those things. So that was really useful once he realised that and was able to apply that. But what if you have no work experience? So I coached a graduate a couple of years ago who had an outstanding academic track record. She was called Sarah, and she had the highest marks in her GCSEs and A-levels, as well as the top grades in her undergraduate and master's degrees. She was ready to get her first graduate job, but she couldn't get beyond the application form stage. We quickly identified that this was due to her lack of work experience and her inability to make her responses unique or impressive. She did have some voluntary work experience, which she hadn't shared on her applications. She thought that because it wasn't paid, it wasn't relevant. She'd also taken part in some interesting activities in university. And when we looked more closely at these, it was easy to identify some examples which showcased her transferable skills and provided much stronger answers for her applications. This was a real light bulb moment for Sarah, and she went on to secure her dream job shortly afterwards. So let's look at extracurricular activities in a little bit more detail and how you can use those. So most students will get involved in activities at university or outside of university which aren't directly related to their course. This can be a great way to make friends and do what you love, and it also provides a wealth of opportunities to add interesting and transferable skills to your CV and application, which you can then talk about in an interview. Look out for examples to take on responsibility within these activities. So can you be in charge of increasing membership numbers, which would be a great example of influencing and maybe sales? Or can you work your way up to a leadership role? Sports clubs provide great opportunities for teamwork and leadership. Being a course rep would highlight communication skills and perhaps an ability to deal with conflict. When you start thinking of your hobbies in this way, it's easy to find transferable skills. Don't restrict your activities to only what's available though. So if a club or society doesn't exist, why not create your own? This would be a great way to demonstrate innovation, influence employers, perhaps to secure sponsorship, and lead a team. Or you might have a side hustle going on outside of university. Even better if it's something with a tangible output. So for example, we've heard of students with stores on eBay that make them £500 a month, for example. Making the best use of your time at university will help you secure a graduate role. You need to achieve a balance between developing strong technical skills in your degree and soft skills that make you more employable. You may be familiar with the Teaching Excellence Framework and graduate outcomes, which are benchmarks that the universities are assessed against. And with those, universities are now under more pressure to show that they're developing students' employability. Career services are often underutilised, so investigate what support they can offer, whether that be through employability workshops, career consultants, employer contacts, or alumni networks. I can't stress how useful the career service will be, and you can access most career services even after you graduate, for a couple of years after you graduate. They have so many resources and so many knowledgeable people within them, and they're all doing great things. So definitely go and check out what they're doing. I think most of the ones that we've spoken to have adapted their offer to be online, so it's a great time to get in touch with them if you haven't already. So let's move on to getting clear on your career plan. It is vital to have a clear career strategy. This will help you manage the direction that you want your career to take, as well as identify and acquire the skills, qualities, and experiences that you'll need. How you go about identifying your career strategy is up to you. Some people may take a detailed approach, whereas others may be more visual and use only key points to focus their direction. Either way, it needs to work for you. So take some time to think before ploughing into applications and job searches. Are you clear on the skills, qualities, and knowledge that you have? Once you know these things, you can match them to the job roles that you're interested in. You'll also be aware of any areas that you may need to develop to achieve your career goals. So consider the questions that are on the screen. What skills and qualities have you got? What are you good at? What do you need to develop? And really think about the things that you do need to develop. Do you really need to develop everything that you're not great at? Because actually, you probably won't enjoy developing those areas, and there might be other people that are better at those. So don't always feel like you have to develop every weakness. You just need to know where you can go to if you need some support with that. Also, what are the requirements for the job that you want to secure? And what are your own job requirements? Being able to answer these questions will allow you to really sell yourself at interview and enable you to showcase what you can bring to the job and the organisation. Figuring out which job roles will suit you best and how to apply your skills and qualities can be the most difficult part of setting your career plan. Think of your options and review them against your values and preferences, considering these questions. Which job roles best suit my skill set? What areas could I see myself working in? But what if you don't know what to do? Let's see what Gary says and with his insight in the next video.
Visit your university career service. They'll be offering online appointments at the moment. The careers advisors will be able to help you think through your options and might suggest ideas that you've not thought of before. For example, by sharing information showing you what other students who studied your course did after they graduated, or by putting you in touch with alumni. Remember, you don't have to know what you want to do before you make the appointment. Careers advisors do their jobs because they genuinely enjoy the process of helping students work through their options, and they'll be very happy to help you.
Thanks, Gary. Another endorsement for the career service there. So we're now moving on to give you a tool to use for smarter career planning. So you can use this tool to start making some decisions. Think about the information that you're able to gather and start to formulate what your career goals might look like over the next few years. This SMART model can help you break down your goals. So smarter goals are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, timely, exciting, and reviewable. I won't list everything that's underneath those because you can see the chart for yourself, but this is really useful just to use to start doing your career planning. The session that we're running next week, the webinar we're running next week on the job search, we will be giving lots of information in that about where to find jobs. So perhaps you might come back to this resource after you've seen that webinar and you've got a bit more information, because it's around understanding your strengths, but also working out where to apply for jobs and what to apply for. So these combined will be really useful. I've also got a goal setting worksheet to help you get started, and I will be sending that out after this webinar. And I also have a career planning checklist, which might be another useful tool to get you thinking about the preparation that you need to do before starting your job search. So that will also be coming out. Moving on to look at values now, which is the last part of our Finding Your Strengths topic today. So employers will often encourage their employees to complete engagement surveys so that they can identify the most important characteristics in the employment relationship. They want to know how to keep their employees motivated, and you can use the same characteristics to identify what you're looking for from your dream employer when carrying out the job search. Here are some characteristics on the screen for you to consider. So take a look at the culture and the work environment. So while salary and company benefits may appeal to lots of potential candidates, the organisation's culture is often what determines whether an employee will fit and actually enjoy the job. The working environment will also determine if an employee will be happy in the workplace. So ask yourself, does the culture fit with my personal values and principles? Does the organisation provide a healthy, positive and encouraging working environment? Does the organisation celebrate success and recognise people's achievements? Take a look at flexibility. So another important factor is work-life balance. You shouldn't be expected to always work long hours at the expense of your personal life, and employers should consider reasonable time off for their employees, and this would include holidays, potentially paternity or maternity leave. Many employers offer flexible working arrangements, such as working at home days or time banking, to help employees get the right balance. I think that once we come through the current crisis, we will see a huge increase in working at home days, as we've been able to prove that it does work in many different environments. So I think that will be something that will be seen just as a standard benefit where possible with many organisations. Consider how you can get the right work-life balance. So think about what would work for you if you had the choice. Look at what the organisation's approach to flexible working is. Do they have any policies already in place? A great example that I've seen of an employer offering flexibility is a brand licensing company called the Point 1888. On their website, their values are exceptionally clear, and their blog on what they call the life-work balance highlights examples of their flexible working approach. Think about involvement. So working for an organisation shouldn't just be about the role and getting paid at the end of the month. You should feel as if you're part of the organisation, have the ability to influence and can suggest new ideas. So does the organisation welcome new ideas? Do they welcome feedback and accept suggestions on how they can develop? Do they give employees autonomy to make their own decisions? Do they allow employees to take ownership for work or projects? Are there opportunities for you to develop your career? So looking at career development opportunities, and your future employer should take personal and career development seriously. Investing in these things ensures that people continue to have the skills and abilities necessary to perform in ever-changing job roles. It's also an opportunity to grow talent within the organisation. So when researching a company, ask yourself, does this organisation have the right paths to allow me to develop my career? What are the opportunities to train and gain new experience? How have other people in the organisation progressed? What is the typical career path in the job that I'm applying for? Finally, with self-awareness, you need to consider what's important to you, as we all have different values and motivations. Ask yourself these three simple questions. What is important to me? What are my values? What motivates me? The answers to these questions will help you work out what you need to be happy and motivated in your new job. Employers are putting more emphasis on values now, but it can be difficult to work out what your values actually are. It might feel much easier to simply list skills and then try to manipulate these into values, but skills and values are different things. Values are lasting beliefs or ideals about what's good or bad and desirable or undesirable. They have a major influence on a person's behaviour and attitude. You can find a list of organisational values with a little bit of digging on an employer's website. If you can't find them, you could always get in touch to ask if they have a document that they're willing to share with you. But before looking at an organisation's values, it's really important to establish your own and then make a comparison. You'll find several exercises online to help you identify your values, but you could try this short exercise as a starter. So we won't do this exercise now, but I'm going to just talk you through how it works, and then if you want to come back to it and do it in your own time, then great. So you'll see here that we've listed lots of different values, and at first glance you might think that they're all really important and you would want all of these things in a job ideally. But actually you need to think about the ones that are most important to you. So try to break it down to maybe 4 or 5 on this list, or add some of your own as well, which are important to you. So once you have a clearer understanding of which values matter to you, you can then identify your best employer match based on what they stand for. You should also find it easy to answer application form and interview questions. You might even spot which ones are linked to values and be able to provide relevant examples, and that would be very useful indeed if you can do that. We will cover how to answer application form questions and also interview questions in future webinars as well. But as I said before, I would definitely encourage you to just choose 4 or 5 on this list that are particularly important to you, and that will help you in your search. So we've got a few little bits just to cover with you before we wrap up. So Helen, before we do that, do you want to just share with us any themes on questions?
Yes, so thanks very much, guys. I've had loads of questions. I'm actually struggling to keep up, so it's good to provide a summary at the end. So I've answered some of the initial ones, but just to go back to internships and placements around deadlines. The deadlines can vary for employers, but as someone rightly said in their question, you want to start applying the winter before the summer that you'd want to do an official internship or placement. But that's not to say that you can't get ahead of the game, and any firms that you're particularly interested in, start to research their deadlines so you can get an idea of timelines of when you should start applying, and certainly put in the research and the time now so that you're ready to go when those internships go live, when you can actually start applying for them. There's been a couple of questions around relevant work experience, and absolutely, no matter what it is, even if it's working in a kiosk or it's working in a completely different country and perhaps it's got absolutely nothing to do with the organisation you're applying for, that doesn't matter. What is important is drawing out those soft skills. So maybe you just did a paper round, which might seem completely irrelevant to you, but it could be working under pressure, it could be interacting with customers, the soft skills that those employers are looking for. There's been a bit of chat as well about, yes, you can research a company online and see what they claim their values are and what's important to them. But you're absolutely right. Some organisations out there say they do certain things, but they don't actually live up to those promises. Wherever possible, and I appreciate that it isn't always possible, try and actually get into that organisation on a voluntary basis, even if it's just popping in for a couple of hours, to see how they operate. So myself personally, before joining SRS, I actually made a point of spending the day with the team in the office to see what the atmosphere was like, to see what the culture was like, to make sure their values matched my own before committing to the job. Where it isn't possible to go and spend time with that employer, see if you can track down people who work for them or customers who've interacted with them and see what their reviews are and what they say. Can you link in with people, follow people on social media who have had some involvement with that organisation and see what their thoughts are about them? And you can help use that as a steer to see if they are actually living up to those values, if they're living up to those promises that they're making on the website. There's been a couple of questions as well about SRS work experience. So we have been running an opportunity for that. We are working with the University of Durham at the moment. I haven't got any further places at this time, but that's not to say that we won't be doing this again. It's something that I'm personally going to be looking at, and I'd encourage you to follow us on social media, because any opportunities like that come up, we will post them. And at the moment, as I say, we're running a project where some of the assessment centres that we run, we ask students to give feedback on our programmes. And we're getting some students involved with analysing that feedback. So it's helping them gain some skills around business analytics and things like that. So yeah, keep following us on social media for any opportunities that come up like that. I'm just having a little look to see if there's any questions I have missed.
Just while you're looking, just one point that I would add is another place to find out where if employers are living up to their values is looking on review sites, so things like Rate My Placement or Glassdoor. Quite often, particularly on Glassdoor, you might find that there's quite disgruntled employees, but actually it's useful sometimes just to have a look and see what they're saying and if there's any common themes. So check those two websites out if you haven't already.
Yeah, so just picking up on a couple of other questions at the end there. So someone has said that they have applied for a graduate scheme and secured a place for an assessment centre, but that the company might cancel their entire graduate programme because of what's happening with COVID-19. Yes, that is happening out there, but I've been on quite a few webinars myself recently and podcasts, and I've spoken to quite a few companies directly. Certainly the bigger firms are still trying to carry on with their graduate recruitment. They may have cut the numbers a little bit, might not be recruiting as many graduates as they first thought, but a lot of them on the whole are trying to carry on. As to whether you should do a master's or apply for a graduate job, I wouldn't want to say either way. It depends on the firms you're applying for. Certainly the ones that are forward thinking and looking ahead and have the budget will want to carry on with graduate recruitment, because as Sophie said earlier, if they do pull their graduate programme and stop recruitment, it can cause them a lot of damage in the long term. So it very much depends on what you're applying for, I would say. But yeah, don't rule out doing a master's, but yeah, just do a little bit more research. It's a shame if that organisation you apply for does completely cancel their graduate recruitment. I'd hope that wouldn't be the overall outcome. A final question there around placements. Do you have to be studying a degree in that particular field to be accepted? You're doing a psychology major, you want to apply for digital marketing company. So yes, a digital marketing degree would be more relevant for that role, absolutely. But no, it doesn't rule you out if you've got a relevant degree. A lot of the graduate recruitment I've been involved with, we have hired some candidates that have had a degree in teaching, for example, that have had nothing to do with the organisation that we've been working with. But because their application has been so good, because their CV has been tailored to the job they're applying for, and they've been able to show the transferable skills that they've got, they have been successful in the process. There are some technical jobs out there that, yes, you would have to probably have the technical degree to back it up. So some very specific areas and sectors. But no, I wouldn't say don't let that stop you from applying for jobs and placements that are related to your degree, as long as you can show how you've learned stuff that is relevant. It's back to those soft skills again.
Can I just add to that? So I totally agree with that point. And I think, when you're deciding what you want to study at university, you're like 17 or 18 usually, deciding what course you want to do. And at that point, you probably don't know what you want to do. So you're choosing your course based on what you enjoy and what you're good at, which is fine. So when you're at university and when you've kind of been influenced by parents, career services, seeing what your friends are doing, getting an understanding for different careers, your job prospects might change, or what you want to do might change, and that is so fine. And a lot of companies don't specify the type of degree course that you have to have done. So Helen said there are specifics. So medicine, clearly they're going to want you to have studied medicine to be a doctor, but for most other things it doesn't matter. You just need to reach that benchmark with academics. So the key thing is to show that you're enthusiastic. So I think, was it psychology that you said you'd studied and you're looking at digital marketing? Well, why are you passionate about digital marketing? And get that across, because you cannot teach enthusiasm, but they can teach you any technical skills that you don't have. Were there any other questions, Helen? Because I'm just conscious of the time. I've just got a couple of bits to run through before we finish.
Yeah, I'm hoping that's covered most of them. But if anyone does have any further questions, please feel free to link in with either me or Sophie, and we'll respond to your questions via that platform. So feel free to get in touch that way.
Great, thanks for that, Helen. I'm so pleased that so many of you asked questions this time. That's really great. Thank you for that. Thanks for getting involved. So you'll see on the slide that we've got there that we're focusing on the job search next week. So we're doing a lot of work just to make sure we've got some current information for you there. You can see there the topics that we are going to cover. So just a couple of bits to finish off. So I mentioned some resources. So we will be sending you the goal setting worksheet, the career planning checklist. So you'll get those along with a recording of this webinar afterwards. And that then means you can go back and you can look at some of those tasks that we mentioned, or go through any slides that you want to spend a bit more time on. Also, we will keep reinforcing the value of the career service. So please, if you're not already, do check out what your career service are doing and get involved with what they're offering. And then, of course, got the link to my lovely book there. So I think that brings us to a close. So thanks again for your participation. Helen mentioned we're very active on social media. We'd love you to connect with us over on our various channels. If you've got any comments about the webinars, we'd love you to use the hashtag #LockdownYourCareer. When you get the follow-up email with the resources and the recording in, you will also get a link to the post-webinar survey. It's an anonymous survey. It takes you 1 minute to complete it. We'd love to hear your feedback so that we can see if we're on the right lines with the webinars and whether there's anything else that you think we should include. So thanks again, everyone, for taking part, and we hope to see you on another webinar.